Welcome to the UNLV Advanced Scheduling tutorial. This tutorial satisfies the training requirement for security access to academic scheduling. The training takes roughly 30 minutes, after which you will complete a short quiz. Once you complete the quiz, your results will be submitted to confirm completion if you passed with a qualifying score. If you have not already completed the Scheduling Basics training, please do so before proceeding with this tutorial. You can also use the Scheduling Reference Guide linked on the Office of the Registrar scheduling page to assist you. We recommend downloading this guide while building your schedule. Our office will notify you if and when changes are made so that you can download the most up-to-date version. Use the production cycle and adhere to the deadlines to ensure that your schedule is built in a correct and timely manner. This will guarantee the cleanest schedule when students begin to enroll, which is when changes can become more complicated. The open build period is when you should be scheduling the majority of your courses. Your schedule should be complete prior to the end of this period. Once the open build ends, the scheduling team will review your class schedule to find errors and inconsistencies that can cause problems once enrollment begins. After the scheduling review, the team will notify you of these errors and provide queries that can help you clean up any scheduling problems. The time period for corrections is very limited, so you should not be building new classes at this time, but rather correcting mistakes. When information is requested, please reply as soon as possible in order to avoid delays that can impact student enrollment. The open build period is the first step in our production cycle. Your goal during this time should be to prepare a schedule that is as close to ready to print as possible. This is where the bulk of your schedule planning and building should occur. Run the schedule by department query for the upcoming semester. This query will provide a template of your schedule as it stands, which you can use to make revisions. You can share the results with your department head to discuss changes for the upcoming term in order to make it easier when it comes to revising. Remember, on this query, the department is your organization's LV number. During the open build, be sure to confirm your new curriculum changes in Curriculog. If a change was approved after the schedule rolled, or after you have started building your classes, they will need to be deleted and rebuilt in order to reflect any new curriculum. Discuss your enrollment management strategy with your dean and/or chair. The following instructions for building or maintaining a class build on the content from the Scheduling Basics training. You can review the content of that training at any time. Remember, we will roll this year's fall schedule to the next year's fall schedule, and the most recent spring will roll to the following spring. If a course was not offered the previous year, or a new course was approved in Curriculog, you will need to use the Schedule New Course page to construct your new course. If the class was offered last year, and there were no curriculum changes after the schedule was rolled, then you can use the Maintain Schedule of Classes page to update the class for the new term. Once the open build period ends, updates to instructor information must be made on the Schedule Class Meetings page. Remember, every 5 years, the entire schedule will be a fresh or clean build. In these years, you will create your entire schedule on the Schedule New Classes page. Calendar year 2020 was a fresh build, meaning the next fresh builds will be in 2025, 2030, and so on. Instruction mode refers to how an instructor will teach a class. The instruction mode can have impacts on multiple parts of a student record, so you must accurately update instruction modes to reflect class instruction. On the Basic Info tab, the instruction mode defaults to P for in-person. UNLV does not use this instruction mode, and therefore you must update this field. If a class is to be taught in person, for example, you need to change the instruction mode to EN for in-person supplemental web. During the cleanup timeframe on the production cycle, all courses left with P instruction modes will be set to tentative status. They will be excluded from classroom placement, and students will not be able to see them in the class search or enroll. If you are creating a special topics class, you must include the topic. If the topic you are looking for is not on the list, contact the curriculum unit via email. Special topics courses that do not have a topic listed will be set to tentative during the cleanup timeframe as designated on the production cycle. They will be excluded from classroom placement, and students will not be able to see them in the class search or enroll in them. If you need to change a topic after enrollment begins, the existing course must be canceled and rebuilt. Accurate topics are important to prevent students from having issues with their records in the long run, for example, being inadvertently subject to a repeat policy. When you select In-Person with Supplemental Web, a Canvas section will be created for this class. The instructor can use this Canvas section to post materials such as a syllabus or accept assignment submissions from students. Use the Meetings tab to create your meeting pattern. The meeting pattern for a standard in-person, face-to-face class must include the days of the week the class will meet with the start and end time. Please ensure the information is in line with the published standard class times document found on the registrar's website. These standard meeting times are crucial to ensure appropriate contact hours and accurate room placement. Pay close attention to AM and PM in your start and end times. The start and end dates for the course should match the dates entered on the Basic Data tab. If your class is modular, you will need to enter these and ensure that they match. All other sessions will populate these dates automatically. You should add the instructor to the class as soon as you know it. You can use the magnifying glass to search or type the instructor's NSHE. If the instructor you are looking for is not on your list, add the instructor by contacting scheduling with the instructor's NSHE ID number, the date the instructor completed the FERPA training, the semester they will begin teaching, and the department's organization code, the LV number. If the instructor has not completed the FERPA training and passed the quiz with the minimum score, they will not be added to the organization. New instructors should complete this step so that you can add them to the class as soon as possible to avoid delays in final grade submission. Please remember, the instructor section can be modified by departments up until finals week. This section is crucial for accurate and timely final grade submission, so it is important to verify that the information is up to date and accurate prior to the last day of instruction. When the schedule rolls, the enrollment cap will default to 1 student. You must update this section to reflect the total number of students that you wish to allow to enroll into a class. This is essential to avoid enrollment complications. If the class requires department or instructor consent to enroll, you will indicate it using the appropriate drop-down menu on the Enrollment Control tab. Please note, if you do not update the enrollment cap for EN classes, meaning you leave it set at 1, those sections will be set to tentative status. They will be excluded from classroom placement, and students will not be able to see them in the class search or enroll in them. EN classes with a cap of 9 students or less will not be assigned general purpose classroom space. These are the instruction modes that will need to utilize multiple meeting patterns. VM, or in-person variable meeting, is used for classes that meet in person on set days but at different times, or multiple set dates throughout the semester with the same or varying times. HY, or hybrid classes, will be used for a class that meets half in person following a standard meeting pattern and is half web-based. WM is a web-based class that may have few on or off-campus meetings. Using accurate meeting patterns for these instruction modes will allow students to plan their schedules accurately and prevent enrollment errors in the future. Multiple meeting patterns refers to any instruction mode that has more than one meeting pattern, or a meeting pattern that is not consistent from week to week throughout the term. Again, this can refer to the VM, HY, or WB instruction modes. For any instruction mode with multiple meeting patterns, you will complete the meeting pattern information by clicking the plus sign to add as many rows as you need. Pay close attention to start and end dates, days of the week, and start and end times, as these will determine classroom placement as well as the student enrollment and scheduling information. When you build a variable meeting pattern or a class that meets in person on set days, but at different times, or multiple set dates throughout the term, be sure you are using the correct instruction mode. If the class is a hybrid class or web-based class with some in-person meetings, you should be using those instruction modes rather than the VM mode. A hybrid course has equal parts on-campus and web-based instruction. When you select this instruction mode, you will need to set the location to UNLV main to ensure that a room is assigned for the on-campus meetings. You will also need to add the DE or Distance Education attribute to the course. On the Meetings tab, add the on-campus meeting pattern first, then add a row for the online portion and use the Web Hybrid Facility ID or 2124. You must also add note number 15 to the Notes tab so that students will understand that the course is a hybrid course at the point of enrollment. Here is an overview of what your Basic Data tab will look like for a hybrid course. The location will say UNLV main to ensure the in-person portion is assigned a room. The DE Distance Education course attribute will assign the online education fee and allow students to see that fee at the point of enrollment. On the Meetings tab, you will complete the meeting pattern information for the in-person portion of the course first. Include the day of the week it will meet as well as the start and end times. Then add a row and add the web component using the appropriate facility ID 2124. You must also include note number 15, which will notify the student that the class is half in person and half online. A WM class is a web-based class with some on or off-campus meetings. For example, if the classroom instruction will be online but will meet in person in the first week of the term, or there will be an in-person exam, such as a midterm or a final, or any combination of these types of on-campus meetings, you should use the WM instruction mode. Again, with this type of instruction mode, you will set the location to UNLV main to facilitate classroom placement for the in-person meeting or meetings. Add the Distance Education attribute so that the student will be notified of and assessed the additional fees. On the Meetings tab, your meeting pattern should have 2125 listed first. Then add a row or rows for the on-campus meeting dates and times. Add note 116 to inform students of the meeting structure of this class. Here is an overview of what a WM or web-based with on-off-campus meetings would look like. The location is set to UNLV main to ensure classroom placement. The instruction mode is accurately set to WM, and the distance education fee is applied so that students are notified of and eventually assessed the appropriate fees. On the Meetings tab, add the 2125 facility ID to the first row because instruction for WM classes is primarily online. Then you will add additional rows for any on-campus meetings, such as those for in-person exams. Be sure to verify the dates, days, and times for these in-person meetings so that they will reflect accurately on the student's schedule. WM courses should always have note number 116 so that students are aware of possible on-campus meetings at the point of enrollment. If you are building an independent study course, please keep the following in mind. IS courses must be listed as independent study in the course catalog. All meetings will be determined by the instructor, so the scheduling pages will not include on-campus meeting or meeting pattern information. Independent study courses are specifically identified in the course catalog and are designed to allow students to work individually with a faculty member on a project or topic of interest. This makes them different from the other instruction modes. Here is an overview of the different tabs for a class with the IS instruction mode. The Basic Data tab will have the instruction mode listed as IS for independent study. The facility ID will be 2123 for department arranged, and the room characteristic needs to be set to 03. These two sections will allow the student to see that they will need to arrange meeting times with their instructor or department. Field study courses are used for those which are comprised of research or special projects outside of the classroom or lab setting. Similar to independent studies, these will not have a meeting pattern or location and will be determined based on agreement between the enrolled students and the instructor. Unlike independent study, these do not have to be explicitly stated as such in the catalog. Enter the accurate instruction mode on the Basic Data tab, in this case, Field Study. Include the appropriate facility ID and room characteristics to inform the student that they need to confirm the meeting arrangements with the department and/or instructor. Instruction, class meetings, assignments, and exams for a web-based class will be conducted entirely online. These classes will never require on- or off-campus meetings, in-person consultations, or any other non-virtual meeting with the instructor. The location must be set to web to ensure the class is not included in classroom placement. You will add the course attribute for distance education in order to assess the appropriate fees. On the Meetings tab, set the facility ID to 2122 for web-based and add note number 16 so that students will see the link to Canvas in the description of the course. Here is an overview of what a web-based course will look like. The location and instruction mode should be designated appropriately. On the Meetings tab, the web-based facility ID should be added. This will exclude the class from room placement, and also exclude it from conflicting with classes with set meeting times and locations on the student's schedule when they enroll. Add note number 16 so that students can see the information for Canvas in the class description. The next section refers to courses with more than one component, such as a lecture with an associated lab or discussion, specifically when only one of the components earns credits. There are a few different ways to set these classes up depending on your scheduling and enrollment needs. We will discuss each scenario on the following slides. The first combination is specific lecture and lab associations. Use this selection if you want to pair a specific lecture with a specific lab. First, you will need to determine which component will be the enrollment section. The enrollment section is the one the student will select from the class search. If you are granting student-specific permissions, they will be added to the enrollment section. It is also the component that will carry credit, so when the instructor is ready to submit grades, they will enter them on the roster, which will be found on the enrollment section. Once you determine your enrollment section, you will ensure that it and the non-enrollment section that you want associated with it have the same association number. When you set up courses this way, you are creating an auto-enrollment section, meaning when the student selects the enrollment section, they will be automatically enrolled in the non-enrollment section. Here is what your enrollment and non-enrollment sections will look like. In this case, the enrollment section is the lab. That means the student will select the lab from the class search. Since the lecture is designated as the non-enrollment section and the associated class number matches on the two sections, the student will either select the non-enrollment section from a list or be automatically enrolled in it. The associated class is what pairs the two sections together. You should already be familiar with this association from the Scheduling Basics training. For classes with only one component, the association will match the last digits of the section number excluding the 1 and leading zeros. When the course has multiple components, the association is what keeps the enrollment and non-enrollment sections together. If you would like the student to auto-enroll into the non-enrollment section, you will need to designate that on the Enrollment Control tab. You will take the class section of the enrollment component and enter it into the box that says First Auto Enroll Section for the non-enrollment component that you want to be added to the student's schedule automatically. In the example shown here, the section number for the lecture, 1001, has been placed in the First Auto Enroll Section box for the discussion. When the student selects this lecture from the schedule, they will enroll into the lecture and the discussion will automatically add to their schedule. You can also allow students to decide which non-enrollment section they wish to be in. In this case, the student will select the lecture from the schedule and then select from a list of labs or discussions. If you organize your schedule this way, please keep the following things in mind. The lecture must be designated as the enrollment section. The associated class number will link the non-enrollment components. so the lectures must match the section number excluding the 1 and leading zeros. From that point, you will determine if you want designated non-enrollment sections to feed into each enrollment section, or if you want students in any lecture to be able to select any lab. To allow any lab to feed into any lecture or lectures, you will change the associated class number for the non-enrollment sections to 9999. For example, if you have 2 lectures and 3 labs, your lectures will be sections 1001 and 1002. Their associated class number will match the last digits of the section number, in this case 1 and 2. Your labs will be section 1003, 1004, and 1005, and their associated class numbers will be 9999. So when the student selects the lecture of their choice, they will see a list of the 3 labs to choose from. If you want to control which labs feed into the 2 lectures, you can do so by matching the associated class number to the lecture that you want the lab to feed into. For example, if the lecture is section 1001, the associated class will be a 1. If you would like lab sections 1003, 1004, and 1005 to feed into that lecture, you will match the lecture association by putting a 1 in the associated class section for each of those labs. In this example, you can see the student will have the ability to select any lab when they enroll in their lecture because of the 9999 association. Determining the association for multi-component sections is crucial for enrollment management. Students must be able to add both the enrollment and non-enrollment sections of a course. So when a class has more than one component, the enrollment limit is controlled by the more restrictive enrollment capacity. This means you might see students being forced to waitlist for lectures with open seats. The reason this happens is because they selected a lab that has reached capacity. Since a student cannot be enrolled in a lecture without the associated lab, they will be forced to wait on the waitlist until the lab section they desire has opened. In these cases, if you look at the enrollment numbers for all associated labs, you will see where the unoccupied lecture seats are. Before the open build ends, you will want to finalize your schedule. You must place classes into priority and departmentally owned space during this time. If you do not, you risk losing the space when it reverts to general purpose after the schedule closes. When placing classes, be sure to keep the university goals and guidelines for classroom utilization in mind. If you require computer lab space, you need to verify that you've added the room characteristic 05, as computer space on campus is extremely limited. Ensure that you have designated the correct instruction mode. Remember, if you do not change it from the default P, your classes will be marked as tentative. And if you use the incorrect meeting pattern, you risk complications during room placement and enrollment. Verify your enrollment capacities. These can be changed later. However, any caps that are left at 1 will be marked as tentative, which can cause complications during room placement and enrollment. List your topics on all special topics courses. Ensure that your meeting patterns fall in line with standard meeting patterns to guarantee the appropriate contact hours are being met. Enter instructors for all courses and verify that at least one person has approved access to avoid complications with final grade entry and submission. The majority of your schedule should be complete and solidified by the time the open build closes. Reopening of the schedule after this point is reserved for minor corrections and adjustments. After the schedule closes, the scheduling team will run a number of queries to find errors. The queries can be found on the following slides, as well as on our website. We highly recommend being proactive and running your own queries as well, so that you can plan enough time to make adjustments once the schedule reopens. You can do this at any time and do not have to wait until the close of the open build period. The scheduling team will email departments of any necessary corrections prior to reopening the schedule. The following slides will display the list of cleanup queries that the scheduling team uses to ensure the published schedule will be complete and accurate. As previously stated, results of many of these queries will result in your courses being set to tentative until they are corrected, which can have negative impacts on room placement and enrollment. All of the cleanup queries can be found in the Scheduling Reference Guide. You may also request a list of queries from the scheduling team. Once the team completes the cleanup queries, they will notify your department of necessary corrections and updates. You can use the results of these queries to make all required changes. You will have 1 week to make these changes before the schedule closes the final time. Once the schedule closes, it should be ready for the start of enrollment. The scheduling team will review the entire schedule to verify that all requested corrections were made while the schedule was reopened. Any courses that still have errors will be set to tentative. This applies to the following errors: in-person classes with enrollment cap of 1 student, special topics courses that do not list a special topic, courses with the IS instruction mode that are not designated as independent study in the catalog, courses using the default P instruction mode, courses that do not have an instructor with approval access listed, and courses that are online such as WB, HY, or WM courses that do not have the appropriate distance education attributes. If you have placed any of your courses into general purpose space or space that is not departmentally owned or department priority, those assignments will be removed. Tentative courses will be excluded from room placement and will not be shown to students in the class search. While the scheduling team completes the final cleanup, we will also put out the call for requests and accommodations. This request form is open for 2 weeks, and we must process them on a first-come, first-served basis. As such, we encourage you to submit all of your requests as close to the opening of the call sheet as possible. The request form is used for combined courses, pedagogical accommodations, back-to-back classes, specific equipment or software, or changing courses from variable to fixed credit amounts. Medical accommodations should use the UNLV ADA application for accommodation. Special accommodations due to medical conditions should follow the procedure set on the UNLV ADA application for accommodation. The scheduling team will be automatically notified once the Office of Equal Employment and Title IX has processed the application. Room accommodations, or pedagogical requests, must be requested each term when the scheduling team circulates the call sheet for accommodations. These types of accommodations refer to specific teaching needs, such as a room or lab equipment, or specific programs or software on computers. While we will do our best to accommodate as many requests as possible, not all accommodations can be guaranteed. We must process them on a first-come, first-served basis, and as such encourage you to submit all of your requests as close to the opening of the call sheet as possible. When the schedule goes live, changes will require the department to cancel the class before making adjustments. Cap increases, changes and updates to instructors, and additional notes can all be added after the schedule goes live. You should be sure that your instructor information is as accurate and up to date as soon as possible to avoid complications with final grade entry and submission. For any changes that require cancellation, the department must contact all students prior to notifying scheduling. This includes canceling classes, changing the room, changing the meeting pattern, rebuilding a class with a new section, or spreading enrollment from one section across 2 or more. You can use the query on the screen to obtain contact information for the students who are enrolled in the class that you're making changes to. You should only contact scheduling after you have made contact with the students, as we will assume that you have when we make the requested changes. If you're canceling a combined section, you will need to indicate that in the request. This prevents a number of errors in MyUNLV. Instructor information should always be as up-to-date as possible. If you need to add instructors to your department's list, contact the scheduling team with the information on the slide. Please note, if we are unable to verify that an instructor has completed the FERPA training, they will not be added to the list. If this is not done prior to the last day of instruction, they may not receive access to the grade roster prior to the deadline for final grade submission. We encourage all instructors to complete the FERPA exam as early as possible to avoid grade roster issues. Once an instructor has been added, the department can assign them to the class. On the Meetings tab, you can enter one or more instructors to the Instructors for Meeting Pattern section. You must also assign that instructor a role. Instructors with approval roles can enter and submit final grade rosters. Those with a grade role will be able to view the roster and enter grades, but will not be able to submit the final grades for posting. Instructors with no role will not be able to view grade rosters at all. At least one instructor must have approved access in order to prevent delays in final grade submission. You can add additional instructors by adding rows and determine if you want the instructor's name to be displayed in the schedule by clicking or unclicking the print box. You will have access to update this information until finals week begins. Following, you will find a few special considerations to keep in mind while you're building your schedule. Once you have determined your enrollment management strategy, you may find you want to limit enrollment in certain courses or even spread enrollment evenly across multiple sections of the same course. There are two effective methods for limiting or controlling your enrollment. Department or instructor consent requires the student to obtain permission from the department or instructor using whatever criteria you have established. Only students who have obtained permission will be able to enroll without errors. You will select Department or Instructor Consent on the Enrollment Control tab for each enrollment section to enforce this option. The consent is issued on the Class Permissions page in MyUNLV, and a student will be unable to enroll in the class until it is granted. You can also unpublish the course. Unpublishing the course allows students to enroll but removes it from displaying on the class search. Since it is not visible or searchable, only students who have been given the 5-digit course number will be able to enroll in the class. You can establish criteria within your department for how students can obtain the course number and enroll in those classes. To unpublish a course, you will uncheck the box on the Basic Data tab that says Print to Schedule. Once you save, the class will no longer be visible unless the student searches using the 5-digit course number. If you find that each term you encounter the same recurring issues, we encourage you to schedule on-demand training with our team. We can discuss problem courses, possible changes to the course or curriculum that may alleviate issues with permissions or student enrollment, and other solutions for different ways to schedule courses which may better suit your needs. You can request on-demand training by emailing us at scheduling@unlv.edu or use the link to the Staff Support Center on the scheduling webpage. Here are a number of queries that you may find useful. They will provide you with a list of your full schedule, individual class rosters, as well as classes that are enrolled above the room capacity which will need to be moved. You can refer to the scheduling reference guide on our website to help your schedule build. If you have additional questions, you can contact us using the Staff Support Center link found on our website or by emailing scheduling@unlv.edu. At this time, you can exit the video and return to the registrar website to complete the Advanced Scheduling quiz. You must complete all 15 questions on the quiz. Only scores of 70% and higher will be recorded. If you do not satisfy the minimum score, you can attempt the quiz until you do. Qualifying scores will be automatically submitted.